A lot of widows aren't prepared for secondary loss, which is usually unexpected or unanticipated loss after the primary loss of a spouse or partner. These could include things like loss of a home or income, financial stability, loss of a job, connection with friends, things like that. It's an expansive list, and secondary losses hit hard. So today we're talking about what kind of losses we've experienced and how we're coping with them.
When my husband passed away, we were living in a pretty large and expensive city, renting there, and we didn't have a whole lot of support system there. Um, and so I had to make the decision to leave our apartment and move home with my mom. And since my mom lived about 4 hours away from where we were living, I also had ended up having to leave my job. So those were both two really big losses. With the home, it's kind of a bittersweet thing because my home is also where my husband died, and so I know that for a lot of people that's very difficult being in that same place. But it was also when I went back there to pack my things, you can't replace that feeling of home. And so I feel like, that's something new that I'm going to have to build again, a feeling like a place where I belong. And also kind of deciding what I'm going to do with my life now in terms of my career. I'm very fortunate that I do have family who is letting me take my time to sort this out and stay with them. But my life looks very, very different now than it did, 8 months ago. And in some ways, it almost feels like a big section of my life didn't even happen because I'm back at home living with my mom, and that whole time my job and my own house and all of that is just kind of disappeared in a way.
I remember about 3 days after losing him, and a friend came over, still a dear friend, said, "Mel, your friendships are going to change. You're going to lose some people." And I thought, nah, not my people. My people know tough things. My people can stick around. There's no problems there. And not everybody can, and not everybody chooses to. And you lose the ability to follow up with things and chase after things and hold those things. And so I think there are friendships that have either drastically changed. There's people that just ghosted at very, very delicate times, and those friendships are just never going to be the same. And that was really hard because I'm just not a person that loses friends. At the same time, I would say there are people that have stepped up and stood up in really extraordinary ways. But those losses are, they are going to remain. They're going to remain to be quite hard. I would say that the second thing that was hard for me is my personal is my domestic partner, but we were also going to go ahead and get married, and we were going to get married the next week after he passed. And it was such a hopeful time in my life. Most of my adult life, I ran around, I was like, I don't need men. This is, I'm me. I don't, it's fairy tale stuff. And, but then I fell for him and all of that, and hook, line, and sinker. And I was so optimistic, and I had so much faith in how beautiful my future was going to be with him, because I think you need a lot of faith when you're getting married. And that was a really big loss for me. That loss of that assuredness that my future was going to be even better than my past had been. And I would say that that's something that I've probably had to put the most work in around. I can't say that I'm 100% there yet. I don't have a big fairy tale castle in my mind, and I don't necessarily have a strong answer when people say, what do you want now? But I believe I'll have a good life, and I'm working on the cognition of that, and understanding the role that that plays in life. But I would say that that is something that will always be something that I need to work on, and not something that necessarily comes quite natural as it used to.
The two things that I want to talk about, one is my family and Anne. They adored each other from the very first day. And especially my niece, who was 7 at the time, they were very, very close. So when I would come in door before Anne, my niece would say, "Where's Anne? Is Anne coming? Can you call Anne?" Right? It was all about Anne. They did science experiments together. They played softball. They had secrets, all kinds of stuff. And so that's been really hard on her, but also my brother and his wife and my parents, right, who are older. And so that is rough. You know, I come to my parents' house, which I'm in their basement right now, and I expect to hear my niece be excited, right? And then have my wife say, you know, the kid's name in the same tone and hug and all those kinds of things. So that's a tough one. And then the other thing is that she and I, we didn't meet until I was 49 and she was 50. And we were so excited to get somebody who wanted to do the outdoor things that we did and the travel. We went to Iceland last year together. It's the first time I had left the country except for Canada. And I don't think that was true for her, but still, it was a really big deal. So, you know, we go hammocking, hiking. We went to Banff hiking. I mean, we always go out into the Tules or whatever. And so we were so excited to find somebody a partner who would do that with us. And then now she's not around, and my family was happy for me to finally get that as well. So I think for me, the two of them are the adventure pal that I no longer have, and also the connection that Anne had with my family and they with her. And then I worry about them and they worry about me and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at.
My husband and I are both academics. He was about to finish his PhD when he passed away, and actually graduated posthumously because he was done with his dissertation just a couple months after he died. And so one of the losses that was unanticipated was just sort of the way we could share our passion and joy about our work. And it's made it so much harder for me to find my own passion and joy again. And I think that's related to the other thing, which is that I wasn't expecting at all to experience sort of the loss of some of my own abilities the way that I did. I think when you hear about grief, you think about people being really sad, which I certainly am. But I didn't know that I would have sort of these mental cognitive effects that some articles compare to having a traumatic brain injury. And so because I'm an academic, my job is mostly writing and critical thinking, and it's been exceedingly difficult in a way that it's never been for me before in my life. So that has been a tough pill to swallow. It's made me really struggle to sort of find my worth and my self-esteem during a really challenging time. I think, you know, I saw someone posted some like ridiculous meme on Facebook that said, you know, your worth is not dependent on your productivity. And I was like a gut punch, because I've spent my whole life making myself feel valuable by being productive. And so losing that after Peter has been really challenging. And it's not something I've solved, but something I'm working on and trying to figure out how trauma work might help me be able to sort of like reignite my brain, but also giving myself permission to know that I might be different now.
For me, I have 2 stepsons from my marriage with my husband, and the older one is on his own already. The younger one I've known since he was 2, and he's 17 now. And after my husband died last year, there were parties that tried to end the relationship between my younger stepson and my daughter and I. And I wasn't really worried about the actual relationship between us because that was built strong over the years. But where we used to see my stepson 2 or 3 times a month, maybe, we were lucky now if we get to see him even once a month. At one point, I was blocked from his phone, and he was told that I had likely played a large role in his dad's death. And it was just adding to a huge loss. It's another heartbreaking loss. And I think for step parents, it's even harder the younger the children are. My stepson is 17 now, and he knows what happened. And I still see both of my stepsons about once a month for lunch and to catch up. For step parents of younger kids, it would be really hard to be cut off from that relationship when they're not able to quite understand what happened yet. And it takes a huge amount of patience and the ability to let go of what you just can't control, which isn't easy. But one day, I think kids will want to know about the parent that isn't there anymore. And for me, if I know that if I just hold space for any step parent, if you can hold space for them, that you're going to be there when they have those questions.